Hello, everyone. And so, etymology is the study of the history and the origin of words and how they developed and how they may have changed over time. Now, I think etymology is important because it allows you to get down to the root and understand the intentions and the motivations of the people that created the words in the first place. And so, it's a bit of a deeper understanding than just simply knowing the most agreed upon definition of a word, right? So, the oldest word for God that we have on record is something called Dingir, which means sky or heaven. Dingir comes from the oldest civilization that we have on record, Sumer, which is now modern day Iraq. Sumer, the construction of Sumer dates back to about 8,000 years ago. Now, what's interesting about these Sumerians is that we don't know where they came from. We don't know where their language came from. So they're kind of an anomaly. There's a very interesting theory that the Sumerian people were visited by a race of extraterrestrials, and they were given all sorts of advanced knowledge and technology to kickstart civilization, which is what they did. But that's another story for another video. The king of the Sumerian pantheon of gods is called An, which is A-N, which also means sky or heaven. Now, the kingdom of Sumer was eventually supplanted by the Akkadian people to the north, who were a tribe. They were a tribe of Semitic people, actually. They eventually came in, they mingled with the people. They shared customs, and, over time, they basically became the new Sumerians. And they referred to An as Anu. All right. Now, around that same time in Africa, you have the Yoruba people who were calling their divine source. They were calling it Olu or Elu. The Babylonians also call it Elu. Now, I don't know if there is a connection between those two people. Like, I don't know if they mingled at a certain point, but it sounds pretty similar. In Hebrew, you have the word El, which means power or shining. You have Elohim, which means the powerful or the shining ones. You have Eloha. In Arabic, you have Allah. And before that, you had the Proto-Bantu people coming up out of Eastern, Central, and Southern Africa. And they referred to the sky, again, the sky, as good or Godu. Now, to pause for a moment, let me just ask the question, like, why did the ancients correlate divinity to the sky? Why did they deify celestial bodies? Well, because the sky represents the highest of the high. The sky is the great governor. It sits over you. The sky governs the cycles of day and night. The sky governs the seasons. The sky sends down rainfall so that crops and plants can grow and so that we can eat. And last but not least, the sky, to our naked eye, is the dwelling place of the sun, who is the ultimate giver of life and light in terms of what we can actually see. So the ancients, they knew the importance of celestial bodies, which is why they deified it. And this is even something that modern scientists would agree upon, that all life came from the stars, an exploding star. And we know that stars explode and die because we can see the remnants of dead stars. So when a star dies or transitions into another state, it sends out all of the necessary ingredients needed for physical life to form. And so you may have heard that your body is made up of about 65 to 70% water. That's true. But when you break water down at its elemental level, it's actually just oxygen and hydrogen. You're also made up of about 18% carbon and a small percentage of nitrogen and some other things, which all come from the stars. So, modern humans have kind of lost the significance of this because we've created our own little artificial light sources, right? Um, we've created electricity, and so we don't really cherish the light which comes from the sky as much. But the sun is still king. The sun is still the risen savior, which rescues you from the darkness and coldness of night. So you have An, Anu, El, Olu, Elu, Gudu, and then you get down to the by way of migration. I'm assuming that we must have traveled to Indus Kush or India or Pakistan, and they had a term in Sanskrit called hutam, which is based on the root word gu or hu, which means to give, to pour, to offer, or to libate to a god. Persia, you got kuta, which means master or lord. Northwestern Europe, in Germany, you have gutam or gudan, which is a clear link to the Sanskrit term huta, which means the exact same thing, to pour, to libate, or to invoke, or to call on a deity. And then from there, in Dutch, you have God or gut, and then you get the English word God. And so a god from a etymological point of view is first and foremost something or someone who is a giver of life. The ancients knew that life came from the stars. And so how do you make a god live?